Hi everyone, welcome back to the Mind Blown Zone episode 53. This is part two. We're just going to dive straight back into it, okay? Just going to resize this video and let's do it. Okay, take it away, Brad.
All right. We're on to the representative reduction. We'll breeze through this pretty quick. It's pretty obvious. So I've made this point probably twice in the last podcast, but we'll do it again. What the congressmen are, senators, is they're policy makers, right? They're not law makers. This is the fundamental reframe. Once you get it, it makes perfect sense, right? They're not. Their job isn't to make laws that bind their employers, which is you and me, right, men and women. That's the common law, right? That's harm, trespass, property. Everybody knows what harm, trespass of property, injury, and so forth is. So all the representatives do is they make internal rules and policies, just like the directors of McDonald's make up these types of policies for the federal operations enumerated functions. How the post office runs, the military protocols, coinage standards, blah, 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 right? They're just middle managers of a service company, not rulers issuing edicts. Day one rule: no new statutes controlling citizens. The legislative body governs the operation, not the people. Simple, right?
Nothing could be simpler.
Citizen legislators, not the ruling class. Point two, right? So the founders envisioned farmers and merchants serving briefly, then going home, right? As a representative, right, of their region, right? What we have today are career politicians worth $50 million, $175,000 salaries, 40 years, never had a real job. The position of congressman or senator became a lifestyle, right? The lifestyle became a grift. So you kill the lifestyle, you kill the grift. So just to have a real simple, I just came up with a 4-year glide path, right? Year one, right? They don't serve 12 months, they serve 3 months in session, right? And we cut their pay by the amount of months that they serve, right? So they have to prioritize. They can't just wander around Washington, D.C. for 11 months and do this, that, or the other. They've got to figure it all out, say in the summer months, for example, right? Year two, you go from 3 to 2 months, same thing. They've got to tighten it up. And then year three, 2 to 1 month, which Claude wrote, proves how little is actually really needed, right? And then finally we get back to the 1 month thing that we had in the beginning, right? So there's just a ceremonial in-person month where all the congressmen and senators come together and actually maybe talk about substantive stuff. And the rest of the time they can work from Zoom or whatever while they have their real job back at home. Pretty simple. Yeah?
Sure.
I mean, all they're doing is making rules to keep the federal government operating, right? Nothing
Mm-hmm.
else. They're
Yeah,
not
I mean,
deciding to go to war. Go ahead.
and yeah, like more and more transparency becomes clear, right? Like we would be moving toward total knowledge of what they're actually doing.
Right. The spotlight would be on them instead of them working in the cracks. And that's the next bullet point here, which like Zoom killed the lobbyist playground, right? So right now, if you work in a big industry with people with big money that want to protect their interests, pharma, the medical industry, the legal industry, whatever, energy, entertainment, whatever it is, right? You pay big bucks, right? But all your lobbyists, they all live in Washington, D.C., so they can hobnob with all the lawmakers week in and week out, right? You take that away, so everyone's now working from home, right? The whole schmoozing thing of the representatives can't happen anymore, right? They're all doing their work via Zoom, for example. That drains the swamp right there, right?
Sure. I mean, I think it's the same thing I have said so many times through this, just about primary differing here. Like I think it could be this way that you're saying, or it could be that they tighten their control so much that they change from 3-year things to 6-year or 12-year or 24-year. But we withdraw participation completely and stop giving them any attention whatsoever, and it just crumbles
Right.
that way. So
The
I
truth
just think
is,
that it's going to happen no matter what.
yeah, the truth is they, not them as people, right? But they as the role they're playing has no effect on us, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah, no effect.
either either the government's working properly or it's not. It doesn't affect my life in any possible way, right? So I don't care really about any of them other than obviously, if I work, if I live on a seashore and boating is a longshoreman is a thing, then obviously maybe if I'm in that industry, I'd like to see my representative try to win some contracts or whatever, right, for our local community to build some boats or something. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Right. That's really what the congressman. That's what they were representing, is the interests of the people in that community, to try to make sure that they get that the federal government utilizes their services and so forth. But this is just again, this is just how do we get from here to there? Right? That's the whole point of all of this. You don't just say, all right, we're just wiping out all of the president and Congress and Senate. We don't need it anymore. Goodbye.
Mm.
Right? That's where chaos ensues. Right? So it's just a gradual winding down of the madness. That's all it is.
All right, and we've talked a lot about parallel institutions here. I think something that happens in parallel at some point is we actually just kind of make new representatives. Like our own little con- convening of representatives and that. We don't have to keep relying on the government and be like, oh, let's replace the people in the existing government. We just have our own little side government that isn't even a government, just a convening of practicality and action taking and cooperation.
Right. That's the charter. That's the next podcast, right? That's the
Yep.
literally, we don't need government. We need a service bureau, literally,
Yep.
right? That's what it
Yep.
really is, right? We need some business, more or less, a service bureau business to handle certain things that the independent states can't handle on their own. Very simple.
Yeah. And I would say that really like explains what this podcast is about compared to the next one. This one is about change the existing thing, right? The next one is about the new thing.
Yeah. This is the thing that would work. That's right. All right, so
Okay.
moving onward and upward. Prosecutorial chain reform. One of my favorite words in, I'm saying that sarcastically, in modern media and academic jargon is prosecutorial misconduct. Oh, there was some prosecutorial misconduct during that case. That's called a euphemism for crime, big time crime, being carried out by the very people, right, who are supposed to be stopping crime. Right? Literally, the biggest criminals are often the ones with the holding the wand of power over everybody else, and they do it all the time. I mean, it's not like every once in a while. I don't mean like all the cases, but anytime there's a case involving somebody who's up the chain and important, right? It seems like they somehow always get away with it, right? They get off, and they slap on the wrist, blah blah blah, right? That's because of the prosecutorial chain. And here's the way it works, right? So here's the hidden hierarchy of discretion. So the big boss, right, is the attorney general. And this is for the federal government as well as the state governments, right? And then beneath that attorney general, right? So that's the final say on every case that gets prosecuted or doesn't get prosecuted. Then we have the DA or the district attorney, right? And so they implement the policies, right? They're the ones, they take their direction from the attorney general, but they make a ton of decisions also on cases that aren't important enough for the attorney general to get involved with, right? So then one step down from the district attorney are these prosecutors, again, whether they're federal or state, right? They also make decisions they basically inform the DA and the AG on cases, this is the information we have on this case and blah, 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 right? So the three of them, right, are making every single decision on who gets criminally prosecuted and who doesn't. And there's nobody watching those three. You follow?
Mm-hmm.
They can decide. And it's funny during maybe one of the most egregious examples was during the riots of well, I forget what year it was, 2020, right? We're in the height of COVID, and in all these Minnesota and Seattle and all these other cities, Minneapolis, they're burning these cities down, and like nobody, they looted the whole downtown, right? And nobody went to jail for any of that. That's just a classic example of the DA, the prosecutor, and attorney general all coordinating to say, hey, we're just not going to prosecute these crimes. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because San Francisco, a couple of years ago, San Francisco put a new rule in that anybody, it was petty, it was beneath a petty crime if you're stealing less than $1,000 worth of stuff. Right? So people just started walking into retail stores and grabbing $999 worth of stuff, and the clerks just watch them gather it all up and walk out the door. Right? Like The point being, who gave these people the power to do that? And the answer is, of course, nobody gave them the power. They took it.
Mm.
So really, the judges only see the stuff, and they're also right can be corrupted, but they only see the stuff that gets through that gauntlet. You with me?
Yeah.
So it's the
I th-
AG and the DA, and then downstream it's the prosecutors and the judges, right? All of them are involved in who gets in trouble and who doesn't. So
yeah.
the cases that never even make it to court, right? They don't make the headlines. You don't even hear about it. Well, this guy was accused of this thing, but apparently the attorney general and district attorney decided he wasn't, wasn't a prosecutable crime. So you'll hear a lot
Wow.
of people talk about George Soros. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, they just don't prosecute, right?
Yeah, they just say nope, we're not going to prosecute him. And
Yeah. They don't
so
even give
like,
a good reason. They just say that they're not.
well, better yet, you don't even know. We don't even know about it,
Mm.
right? Someone walks in and says, "Hey, such and such a person just committed all these horrific, egregious crimes," and if that person is protected by the system, that that person's claim and testimony is just tossed out. Nope, done. You and me never hear about it, right? So the attorney general and district attorney can make that call behind closed doors on their own without any oversight, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this, if you're familiar with George Soros, I don't know if we've ever talked about him on our podcast before, but he's involved in all sorts of nefarious activities and funding. But he funds the district attorneys and prosecutors and attorney generals all over the United States, and that's where a lot of his money goes.
And
So
he's still kicking, is he?
if one, I believe he is. I mean, who knows whether there's clones or AI or whatever going on, but I haven't heard of his death. I know that his son or his grandson or something supposed to be taken over.
Yeah, he looked
But yeah,
pretty bad
basically,
like 10 years ago.
yeah, I think he's in his 90s. But the point, he's just a figurehead, right? But the
Mm.
point is that he knows that. I mean, think about what a power play that is. If you own the lead criminal law enforcement officer in a state, right, then
Mm-hmm.
you can send in your bad actors, and they can pretty much operate with impunity because all it takes is a phone call. Say, yeah, okay, yeah, Billy got busted doing this crime. You need to let him off, and they're done.
Right. So you just put in people who are corruptible, greedy, only care about money, want a lavish lifestyle, probably also want to harm good people. You just put that person in as the district attorney. Whoa,
Right.
easy.
And the attorney general, right? The AG and the DA, right? If you own those two people, you completely own that state, and your people can operate there with impunity now, right? So even if they get caught, they don't really get caught.
Yeah, I mean,
See
look at
how it
that
works?
William. His name was William Barr, right? Everyone thought
Yeah.
that he was gonna like prosecute, and then he just didn't prosecute. Okay, wasn't even a
Yeah.
trial. Just don't
Right.
prosecute. No
Right.
problem.
Media ignores it, so it just goes away. It just leaves everybody's awareness, and it's done. Yeah, that's how it works. I mean, it's brilliant. So you got to reform that whole thing, right? That basically it needs transparency. And so every claim ever made, right, by a person, right, needs to be seen by everybody. So if I say, "Hey, I saw this crime going on down the street," the DA and the AG can't bury it, and they say, "Hey, well, guess what? This Brad guy said he watched whatever a stick up at this convenience store." And he saw the guy, and he said he actually knows the guy. It's this guy, right? Like all that information couldn't be hidden. And
Okay.
believe me, that's what the legal system is for. The legal system, right, is designed to protect them. That's the real purpose of it. It isn't to make things better for us, right? It's to protect them. And that's how you do it. Like in a real county with a sheriff and a judge who's just a magistrate, these crimes get get heard right by the people. So it's a huge thing that nobody sees. It's like behind the scene. It's like the wizard behind the scene, behind the curtain, right? Like Toto hasn't pulled back the curtains on that one yet. So it's really
Mm.
important. All right. So I guess that's my next point. Radical transparency at every node, right? So every complaint received goes public. It goes into a public database. Nobody gets to say, this didn't happen. Every charging decision with written justification, it's public. It's publicly available. every declination with written justification. So this is why we aren't going to prosecute this guy. We get to see what the reason was that they didn't prosecute, right? Every plea deal has to be rationalized, right? We get to see, okay, well, here's why we did this plea, blah blah blah. So AG policy directives to the DAs, right? We see publicly like, hey, we're not going to prosecute the George Floyd rioters in Minneapolis, right? We're going to let them all go because reason. So district attorney policy memos to the prosecutor, it's public. Right? Again, there's no discretion hiding behind closed doors. Patterns of selective prosecution become undeniable when citizens can see the spreadsheet. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Of course, then you have citizen oversight boards with override authority, right? So these aren't advisory; these have actual teeth, so they can see what the DA and the AG are doing, and they can audit these things and say, no, you can't do that. You don't. Who gave you the power to make that decision, right? You don't have that power. So they can compel prosecution. They can appoint independent prosecutors if the AG, DA are acting in concert on behalf of somebody else, et cetera, right? So it's overridden by the citizens who are watching what these two are doing, what decisions they're making, and why. So they can't, basically, again, they can't operate in the dark. Sunlight is the best disinfectant. Yeah?
Yeah, and you know what? This whole citizen override thing is important, right? Because at the moment we just have like I don't know if these district attorneys are elected or anything like that, but even if they are elected, it's in a rigged election, obviously, with and even if it's not completely rigged, it's like the other guy doesn't get any funding, whatever. They're not there by citizen choice. So,
That's
this citizen override of public official decisions is an important point in pretty much every single thing we're talking about here.
right. I mean, obviously the law/legal area is the most important, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh,
They're the
yeah.
ones setting the tone for everything else. So yeah, we're cutting them off at their knees, right? By saying you can't do that. And ironically, right, it's the will of the people is how they're supposed to be operating. So a DA can't say, well, I know it's unpopular with the citizens, but this was my decision, right? That's
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
the exact opposite, right?
No. Sorry, what? No, 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 no.
Exactly, right? The DA say, well, actually, it was my decision to let this guy off, but the will of the people is that we prosecute him. So, well, we're going to prosecute him, right?
Yep.
So there you have it. All right, so you just flip it. It's just yet another inversion amongst inversions, right? And so the next thing is private prosecution is restored, right? So it's a common law right? It's stolen by the prosecutorial monopoly, right? So a victim can bring charges directly to the grand jury if the AGDA prosecutor chain refuses, right? So you end the gatekeeper stranglehold entirely. You don't need their permission to seek criminal justice. Again,
Yeah.
brainlessly simple, isn't it?
Right on.
End state, presenting officers, not gatekeepers, right? So the transitional path leads here. Professional jury system, which we're not going to talk about in detail here today, but decides what gets charged, right? So it's not up to the judge. The judge is a magistrate. They don't decide the law or the facts. The professional jury system does, and it's brilliant, and I'll defend it to the end of my days. It makes perfect sense. But the AGDA prosecutor chain becomes administrative, not discretionary. Got to say that twice. They're just moving the cases through the system, right? They're administrators. It's not up to them who gets charged and who doesn't, and why not. Yeah?
Yeah, yeah. I imagine we might even do a podcast at some point on this professional jury system. I think that's
Yeah, it's worth it.
worth putting
It
out.
is worth it. So, yeah, the DA and the district attorneys, the prosecutors, they investigate, they compile evidence, and they present it, right? But the jury decides if charges proceed. The grand jury in this case, right? They would be the ones who would decide. So if you had people who were professional and they were above 400 on the Hawkins scale, as my grand jury demands, you pay them well. It's like a honorable job, and all of a sudden these things that get slipped through the system without anyone noticing can't be slipped through anymore.
Right.
Kill
And
the
it's, of
gatekeepers.
course, got the citizens, if we want to use that word, but, the members of the society, having oversight and selecting this jury and saying, oh, no, you've done so many bad jobs. You're no longer a professional juror, sorry.
That's right.
And
There's a scoring
just
system.
above,
That's right. Yeah.
when you mentioned the grand jury, I was like, yeah, well, who's on this grand jury? But yeah, it would be like this, a professional jury overseen. by the members of
Right.
society.
That's right. It's so simple. we want people above the 400 on the Hawkins scale to be on. You'd want them on your jury if you were innocent, right? You'd want below 200 people if you were guilty.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, then you can twist them with emotional stuff and trick them and lie to them. They're not going to see it, but the people above 400 are going to see the truth. And of course, that's what we want on
Yeah.
our jury system. We want people who can see it and not be, not get emotionally or traumatized or whatever with it. So that's my prosecutorial chain reform. And no one knows about it really that hasn't studied it. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. You're like, oh my gosh, it's a rigged system. The end.
Yep. Okay. Shall
All
we go
right.
to legal, lawful, or reform?
There it is. You've heard it from me several times. We've done 4 or 5 podcasts on it, right? But so 2 systems, 1 deception, right? So legal and lawful aren't synonyms, right? They're different jurisdictions. Legal, right, refers to statutes, codes, regulations, admiralty law, maritime, fictions, right? That's what legal is, right? It's the liege. Lawful is common law, harm, trespass, property, flesh and blood, land and soil. Very, very, very different things, right? So what the current rulers did, is they collapsed them together. So they tricked everyone into the legal sandbox, then changed the rules. So they absorbed the lawful things, saying, yeah, we got to handle these if we're going to trick everybody. So they do have the lawful things under their purview now, right? But they added all the fictional nonsense to it that made it the legal fiction that it is today. So reclaiming lawful jurisdiction means reclaiming your standing as a man or woman, not a legal fiction, which I've talked about many, many times before. Any comments?
I would only comment that, yeah, as Brad mentioned, we have 4 podcasts specifically referring to the legal overlay. They're all in the first 10 podcasts we did. So just scroll down to the bottom of our list on the mindblowenzone.com and watch those in order.
Yeah, you'll hear all those details in greater detail anyway. Right. So statutes, sunset, and categories. So I had a long battle with Claude on this, but then he finally figured out what I was trying to get at. So like man-on-man crimes, that's all common law, right? So one person claims another person harms them. There's no statutes. We throw them all out. They're all gone. Don't need any of them. It's the golden rule, right? Do unto others. And a jury of competent people can determine whether or not person A harmed person B. The end, right?
Mm-hmm.
Don't need manslaughter 3 and involuntary manslaughter 4 and murder 6 and all these garbage statutes. Just throw it all out. It's not, and of course, the DA and the district attorney prosecutor get to decide which one of those things. You can only throw this man in prison for up to 3 years for involuntary manslaughter 4. Well, what if the jury wants to throw him in for 10 years or 1 year or whatever, right? It's not up to them. The district attorney decides with the statutes. Garbage. Victimless crimes, eliminate immediately. No victim, no crime. And this is what the Constitution says, by the way, right? You get to face your accuser, but if you get a speeding ticket, right? Who did you harm? Nobody. So there's no more crimes in that sense. Now, someone can take you to a common law court for speeding through your neighborhood and almost running over your kids, and right, and your neighbors saw it and everything else. You can absolutely go after that person. That's a whole different ballgame. Make sense?
Yeah, I'm not sure what crime it is, but for example, doing 100 kilometers or whatever, 70 miles or something, 60 miles, I don't know what it is, down a neighborhood street, it's definitely a crime, even if there's no victim. Like, no literally directly affected victim. It's got to be a crime. I don't know what it is. But if you took something like a parking ticket or something like that, that's definitely not a crime.
You can argue a lot of different directions on both, but yeah, that's it. Again, it's up to the jury. It's not up to a bunch of legislatures to decide this is and this isn't. All right, let's let the professional jurors decide.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Like if someone speeds up my street at 100 kilometers an hour, I can take them to court and let a jury decide if they've done wrong. Right? It doesn't matter. We don't need a state to decide whether it's right or wrong.
That's right. And maybe that person was rushing his, bleeding wife to the hospital, or she was giving birth or whatever, right? So, he had a good reason, he was taking a risk, right? Versus, he does this every day, coming home from work, right?
Yeah.
That's exactly right. All right, so what else goes, right? Crimes against the state, right? Just, they're gone immediately. We talked about this already. The state isn't a victim because it's a fiction. No such thing. So all those go away, which is half of all crimes. So now, but we still have, and this is important for people to understand, is that the legal system, right, vivified or brought to life what's known as the corporation. We've talked about this, right? The orating corpse, right? The speaking dead fictional entity. So you, me, and everybody else, humans, we were born with our natural rights, right? We don't need a man to tell us what they are. We know what our rights are. But a corporation is a fiction. So the legal system, right, gives rights to corporations. And as things are created today, and this is where Matt and I eventually get into some deep arguments, is that all these fictional entities that are out there, you can't just tell them, you just can't wipe them all out, right? So you need the legal system to manage all the corporate statutes, codes, and laws that they operate under. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So my proposal is that there's a 2-year window for all these businesses to transition from what they are today, which is anonymous corporate veils, right, to full disclosure of funding. This is where Matt and I get into an argument. But that's my proposal, and I'm open to other suggestions. But the way that all these nefarious operations work today is they basically get behind the scenes money from who knows where. It gets into their coffers, and then they're able to do whatever they're able to do. So my example is, the American American Elementary Textbook Corporation, right? Just making one up, right? And they make the history books for 3rd graders and 4th graders or whatever, right? So if they, right, today, if Chen Lu from Beijing, China wants to donate $500 billion to them, right, then he could do it, and nobody will actually see it. They can hide it through these shell companies, shell corporations, so that the money just shows up at American Elementary Textbook Corporation. You with me?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So presumably, this Shen Lu guy can tell them, here's what, and we'll even print the books up for you. Here's the book. Here's what we want to educate the American children on American history or world history. And so we'll provide you with all the content, and the textbook company's like, well, yeah, for $500 billion or whatever, yeah, we'll be happy to do that. So that's what's happening today in a million different forms and ways. No one can ever figure out who's getting money from who the way things are structured today. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So my point is that in order for you to operate an actual business, right, you have to actually have the names of not only the owners, not officers, but actual owners of the business, and where the funding comes from. You need the names of the funders. And that would be part of this transitional era. So it'd be much, much, much more difficult to back end bribing, payoffs, grift and so forth that's happening today with the unlimited, cascading shell companies thing that no one can ever figure out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so just let me check this with you, right? So I have a incorporated LLC with the U.S. legal system, right? Are you saying that I have to do this thing that you're requiring?
Everybody does.
Yeah,
but
I don't
you
see
have
why
your
I have
name
to
on
do
it.
anything.
You have your name on it, right?
Right. Yeah.
So you're not hiding.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So
But
you
I still don't see
basically
why
you
you get to force me to reveal something.
If I don't force you,
This
then
is
I
what we
can't
argued
force
over.
anybody else. Right. If I can't force you, then I can't force anybody else. That means that the back end grift continues. Right.
Yeah.
Anybody that Chen Lu can
Yeah,
pay
exactly.
off American Textbook Company forevermore. And who knows where Chen Lu got his money from, right?
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. Like that's, and I agree with that. Then if you can't force me, then you can't force anybody, right? Just because you
Right.
suspect them of a crime, and even if they are probably guilty, right? I still don't believe that you can force them, and I think it doesn't matter that you don't need to do this big investigation because I think we just withdraw our attention from these people.
Well, then my point being, again, this is the transitional era we're talking about here, Matt. Right? We're not talking about the end game, right? So what's going on today, which is going on like a million times more than we can possibly even realize, will be able to continue. Right? We won't get rid of the fiat. We won't get rid of the hiding behind shell corporations. So they'll be able to continue to operate as they are right now. That's all.
Okay. Well, I'll just let you know now that if you try to force me to reveal stuff, then I'm not gonna.
All right. Then you'll have to come up with another way to do business. That's all.
and I think that's a key part of this. Like, you know, the legal system, corporation system, will completely crumble. Like, you just yeah, you go in, put rules on it, make people do stuff, because everyone involved in the corporation system is nefarious, in to the extent of their involvement in the system, because it's all a 30% tax partnership, approximately, with the controller of the system itself. Right? So every single activity you do within the legal system and the corporation system, and then you pay your 30% tax, you're complicit in the crimes that money is used to fund.
Well, you're
So,
going a little too far with it. Yeah, I get what you. But just
I don't
think,
think so.
before 1880, you have to do it my way, right? You have to show it. You have to be the owner out in front. There was no corporations before 1880. Technically,
Yeah.
there were the East.
Yeah. So we'd sure. Sorry. Say that again.
I'm saying that the whole idea of that people say the East Indies Company and the Dutch West Indies Company, they were actually the first corporations. Of course, what wonderful things they did for the world, right? Opium and raping societies of their minerals and on and on and on, right? But that I'm saying that humanity operated for millennia without corporations.
Hmm.
Right? Like you actually sold textbooks to schools. Well, that was your business, right? Everybody knew that was Matt Cook's textbook business, right? That's the guy who owns it.
Hmm.
There's no reason to hide. You wouldn't have a reason to hide, right? You're like, yeah, I'm the guy who writes the textbooks because you were on the up and up and you were legitimately doing good things for school kids, right?
Hmm.
So the current corporate structure veils everything, so nobody can know any of this stuff without, incredible amounts of research that almost nobody can do to get to the bottom of it.
Hmm.
So that's the point. That's the point. Is to
Yeah.
end
Well.
all that hidden financing.
Yeah. Well, I agree, and I think that the ending of it is yeah. I mean, fine. You can have your method of making them reveal it, but I think what happens in the end is the entire corporation structure crumbles. And
Yeah.
for example, in the marketplace that I'm going to set up, ideal marketplace, you can't be, if you want to do a business, it's you. You're an individual. You only represent. There's no representing, right? You're an individual. You act as yourself. That's it. There's
Right.
no corporation.
But,
It's
but
just silly.
right. But what crumbles it though is what I'm saying. Is this is the best way to get away, right, with doing things right that are bad, is to do it through corporate veiling, right? So
Hmm.
if that's the easiest way and best way to do it, and we don't make people do it a different way, then they're just going to continue.
Yeah, and I think that's so our main differing on this is like continue all you want. Go ahead, continue. Like we're not even going to look at you and care what you do anymore.
What do you mean that they're influencing? They're paying for the Fox broadcasters and the American textbook industry and the food industry and the pharma industry and entertainment, right?
Hmm.
They're influencing everything with their secret money.
Yeah, yeah, go ahead. We'll stop putting our attention on every single thing you just listed.
Okay, well, but how would you know? You wouldn't. You couldn't know. That's my point,
Oh no, we'll
right?
figure it out.
Okay, we'll figure it out. All right,
Transition.
we'll tap into the astral realms and the Akashic records, and then we'll be able to see it going on. Well, some people actually can do that, but anyway, let's move on. This is a
Yeah, if I can just
a
add
point
one
of
thing, it's
contention.
just like we're just differing on how a transition is made. Like it's gonna get made in some way. Maybe a bit like I'm saying, maybe a bit like Brad's saying, maybe a bit like the listener is saying to themselves. One
Yeah.
way or another.
Well, yeah. Matt's legitimately arguing for the libertarian voluntarist thing, which is like, no one can force me to do anything because I'm a free and sovereign man, right? The end. Right? It's like, that sounds great, except, how do we get there?
Hmm.
Anyway, all right, let's keep going. Professional jury system as the bridge. So this is my big thing, and we probably should do a podcast on it someday. But I think this would be an incredible thing to do. I think, and I call this CQ testing, consciousness quotient. Right? We don't care about intelligence quotient. In fact, that's not even a good measure of anything. But consciousness quotient, whole different ballgame. And these would be very well compensated people They would be anonymous, to the public. They would be basically have a number, right, or something attached to them, and so they couldn't be, you couldn't find out that Bill Smith is such and such a juror to bribe them or pay them off, right? They just have numbers, but you would see the results, right? What would be publicly available is their decisions in cases, and the results, their reasoning for why they decided things, and so forth. So all that would be publicly available. But again, these would be highly recognized, highly paid individuals that it was their job to make decisions on justice and truth and falsehood, and therefore they would have to be of a certain level in consciousness to even be able to participate. Yeah.
Right on.
That way, you got a whole bunch of people with no skin in the game, other than to, of course, maintain their high standing as a good juror. That would be their goal in life. Career. Right? My goal is to come to the most honest, truthful decision on every single case, and I get paid very well for that. So how are you going to corrupt me exactly? Anyway, that is my idea for how we get rid of the one judge making, I'm going to dismiss this entire case because I said so, and that gets rid of that little problem. Common law restoration. So this is we've done some fun talks about this, right? Property, trespass, harm, wrongdoers, men, women, right? There's real simple things. Was there property involved? Did someone trespass upon it? Was there harm caused? Right? Those are the three big questions that you're looking at for all of jurisprudence, right? It's not complicated. It's very, very simple. And again, that whole system worked for thousands and thousands of years. Why can't it work again? Right?
Mm-hmm.
No totally statutes required. Pardon?
Totally agree.
All right. All right. So what do I have for the sunset mechanism? All federal statutes controlling citizens placed on a 5-year sunset. Yeah, I don't know why that's in there. That actually should be, no, we're just getting rid of them. That's a misprint there. It must be alternatively reauthorized. No, the federal doesn't control the citizens. The end. All right, skip that one entirely. So we're down to military drawdown. This is the biggie of the biggie, besides the money one. Any pre remarks on the military drawdown?
No.
I'll just throw in my awareness level number 5, and is that there's a group of people that run the world, as we noted in 2 podcasts ago, who rules the world, and they're the ones who start all the fights and get everybody riled up and fighting. In truth, okay. So first of all, the petrodollar enforcement, which is actually collapsing as we speak. It's very interesting, but this is what I mentioned earlier in 1972, or right after Nixon broke from the gold standard. And of course, Nixon didn't do it. He was told to do it by the people who run things. Kissinger flew off to Saudi Arabia and made a deal with them, because they're the big oil producers, and said, we'll protect you and put our military bases here, and we'll give you all this great stuff, and you just got to do one thing for us, is not accept payment in anything other than United States dollars. That was the deal. And that became known as the petrodollar. And this protects dollar hegemony, and it's done it for 50 plus years, 60 plus years, right? Like I mentioned earlier, Saddam Hussein tried to buy oil in euros. Look what happened to him. Muammar Gaddafi tried to use gold-backed African currency. Look what happened to him. But that is the point. That's why America has like 250 military bases around the world, and like the next closest nation, like China, has like 22 or something. I mean, it's like no one's even close to us. And what are we doing in all these countries with our military? We're protecting the petrodollar.
Right.
So
constant
once
threat.
That, right. And everybody, it's just being there, right? Just the guy in Turkey knowing that the American base is 50 miles from the presidential palace, right? Or the guy in Qatar or whatever. Right? They just know the American military is gonna be on top of you in a minute once they catch wind that you bought gold in euros, bought oil in euros, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that whole mechanism is collapsing as we speak, and when it really does collapse, I think America is going to be in a little bit of trouble. Excuse me, economically anyway, for a period of time. It's not going to be as easy to be here when that happens. So yeah, as things become more gold-backed, or some actual commodity behind the money of the nation, then the whole petrodollar thing collapses immediately. If you live in India, you can buy your oil in rupees, and if you live in, wherever, you know what I mean? It's very simple. Why we don't have to turn our currency into American currency just to buy oil any longer. And of course, everybody needs oil. Yeah.
Oh yeah, all good.
Okay. Then we have the protection myth. This goes back to our "Who Rules the World" podcast, right? But who are we really protecting? Who do we need protection from, right? We've been in America for what 270 years or whatever it is, and no one's ever tried to attack us, right? We have two oceans. We have Mexico and Canada, our friendly neighbors. In Australia, you're completely surrounded by an ocean, so it'd take a lot of work to attack our nations, right? What do we need all this military for? No one's even threatened to attack us, really, ever. I mean, sure, back the British, right, back in the early days, so forth, but nothing since, right? So the logistics of attacking America or Australia are really fantasy, right? You need to have like a British armada of ships to even do it. So what's the ultimate boogeyman? Nuclear annihilation. Well, I've determined that nukes are completely fake. We might do a podcast on that someday, but we know for sure that Hiroshima and Nagasaki were napalm and mustard gas, unquestionable fire bombings, and but that's kind of what the next scare tactic is going to be. I think they're going to try it soon, probably in 2026. Iran's nuclear programming, or someone North Korea will show back up in the news. But they're just trying to scare us with just complete and total lies, and that's how they get a war going, right? That's how they get an actual fight going. Is that they make up stuff that country X did to country Y or whatever, and then let that propagate through the media. Then the people get mad, and people vote for a war, and then the war happens. Yeah. What are your thoughts on all that?
Mm-hmm. So when you say the protection myth, are you talking about like the? Are you saying that the reason they say they have to have such a big military is to protect the country from invaders?
That's right. Well,
Right.
the country may not be the best word. I think the word they use today is protect democracy.
Right. Well, you
Right.
have to
Which
protect democracy, right?
right, that's the neo-feudal cabal system, right? That has to be protected. So that's how they say it, right? So the reason we have a military base in Saudi Arabia is because we're protecting the Saudis from the Syrians or whoever they say is attacking. Right? The reason we have one in Germany is to make sure that the Russians don't come in. You know what I mean? So that'll be their justification for these bases. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting how one of the consciousness breakthroughs that people are going to have to go through is in the military. Like they're they're convinced that going into like Iraq or Iran or whatever, wherever they've gone to make war, they're convinced that that was the right thing to do for them to go over there and like kill like hundreds of thousands of people, and that they're actually doing a good thing, like spreading democracy and making the world a safer place. So, yeah,
Yeah.
imagine
That's
having
an
to go through
awkward.
that realization.
Yeah, it's an awkward conversation that I don't really want to have. But yeah,
Yeah,
that's
someone else can have that one.
inevitable. If you think it through long enough, that's an inevitable conclusion you're going to have to come to. It's no fun.
Yeah, I mean
I
the present situation that we're in talking to the military is like when they're nearby, you're meant to say thank you for your service.
sure. Oh, sure. And you know what? 99.999% of them think they're doing the right thing, so that's all that truly matters, right? Right? They're fully believing what they've been told. Just like you and I believed it 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago, right? So there's that. But yeah, there's a moment of awakening and realizing that there's a certain group of people that have been causing all the fights all these years.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Another conversation.
Okie dokie. Number three.
Anyway, yeah, stage withdrawal is number three, right? So you don't abandon, you don't just like leave all the military bases at once. Same idea, right? There's a winding down plan. So year one, two, you slowly move the troops out, the equipment out, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and you work your way out of those places because I'm sure they are performing some sort of protective function of some sort, right? They can't completely do none of that. They have to at least have the appearance of that. So again, pulling them out across a span of 1 to 3 years, I think, is perfectly reasonable. We don't need any overseas military bases. Period. End of the subject. Comments?
Yeah, I think one key part thing that happens is like people actually leave the military. Like it's not just like, oh, the leaders, the rule makers are decreasing the amount of bases. Like literally the amount of people in the military just reduces, and there's like literally no other choice except to have less bases because there are less people.
Right? Yeah. Right today, interestingly, at least in America, I don't know what it's like in Australia, but in America, it's like if you aren't going to go to college, graduating seniors, then you should go to the military. Those are like your two choices. Hardly any people think, oh, I'm going to go into a trade, like plumbing or electrician or carpentry or whatever. Like, no one even thinks of that anymore.
Oh,
All
it's
we need
pretty
to
common
do
in
is
Australia, I'd say.
to do those trades instead.
Oh yeah, I mean doing trades is like really popular in Australia. Like apprenticeship,
Poof.
trade, yeah, yeah.
Exact opposite here. I mean, once it was like that here, whatever, 50, 80 years ago, but not today.
Hmm.
Yeah. It's
Well, I
college
think
or
that's a
military.
great path, really. I think that's
It
like if you're
is.
that way inclined that you like labor, like you like literally doing stuff with your hands, manual work, then that's way smarter than going to college.
Yeah, or the military. Right? It's 1,000 times better than both. And
Mm.
for people, in America, that's it's like doesn't even enter the picture. I mean, of course it
Wow.
does for some, but I'm saying let's say 90+% it's one military or college. So obviously, we don't need all those people going into the military anymore. Okay, what's next? Force reduction follows mission reduction. Yeah, 1.3 million active duty for empire maintenance. I like the way he wrote that. Empire maintenance, exactly is what it is. Democracy maintenance, right? So you just reduce it. If you just reduced it to actual defense, right? Like really, all we kind of need is like Coast Guard and Navy, maybe a little bit of Air Force, right?
Hmm.
But yeah, everything just drops off the map when you realize nobody's trying to attack us, and no one's going to attack us because that's ridiculous. Because the people who did all the attacking have been neutered.
Yeah, and I think that's a key point. That like the thing making the military so big is the fear that people are gonna attack me.
Right.
What if people attack? That's the thing that makes voters vote for you know presidents who say that they're going to increase the military. Oh,
Right.
good. Decrease my fear.
Infinite defense budget, right? We don't want the Ruskies to nuke us. That was the
Right.
story for me growing up, certainly, right? In the 70s, 80s, 90s, that was what it was all about until that thing collapsed. So now it's who I don't even what are they talking about now? But everyone's just so brainwashed that they just say, yeah, we're raising the budget $1 trillion because we have reason X, Y, and Z, and everyone goes, well, okay. But yeah, contractor scam too, right? Like the classic is the $500 toilet seat that was rolling around in the America in the 1990s when that little news piece came out. Um, but yeah, it's easier than you think. No one's going to attack us. They never have tried to attack us for over 200 years, and we don't need to be all around the world uh, pretending to be the policing other nations. Their nation's business is their nation's business. End of the story, right?
Hmm.
All right. Welfare and entitlements, right? So this is really this all come. This is the other. If you look at the United States budget, if you believe the figures that they present, right? There's always these are the two biggies: military and entitlements, right? This is of course taking care of the citizens, so it's Social Security, Medicaid, food stamps, Medicare, all that good stuff. And so when people hear about this idea of no rulers, right, or no government as it is, then they think, well, who's going to pay for all this? And the short answer is it comes back to the states and then the communities and so forth to take care of people who are dependent. As I mentioned at the top of the last podcast, of course, the dependency machine is designed. It's from the Communist Manifesto to be precise. Right? It's not an accident that every year more and more Americans become dependents of the government. That's the way it's supposed to work. And eventually, right? So if eventually you get to, it's like Brave New World, right, or 1984. When you get to the end, like you couldn't possibly exist without the government benefits. Right? You can't grow your own food. You can't travel from point A to point B without the right documents, and on and on and on. Right? So uh, let's see, war on poverty produced, oh yeah, so 60 years of the war on poverty, we now have more poverty, trillions spent, dependency deepened. This isn't failure, it's function. The system creates dependents who vote for more system. That's the way, that's exactly how it's written in the manifesto. Right, so you break the model. You localize responsibility of the states and the communities who actually know their people, have skin in the game, and can't print money to paper over failure. So that's how we go. That's how we slowly move people off of the government dole. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And there's this big belief in most people that like if the government wasn't taking tax and giving it to poor people, then no one would. That everyone out there is just heartless and wouldn't support their fellow man.
Right.
You notice
And
that?
and yet, of course, then it's like, well, how did it work before 1936?
Right.
Right. Well, there was the Great Depression and everybody was dying. Right. Every time you have to say, how did humanity and society work prior to this government communist entitlement business? Like somehow it worked. And I
Hmm.
think that little, you just get that little seed to land in someone's consciousness. They go, okay, yeah, I see what you're saying. Right. So that's where
Hmm.
we'd want to get back there. Right? We want to go back to that simple, obvious structure. But at the moment, right, we've got to find a way to transition back there because you couldn't just say, okay, federal government not going to give away, any more money, whatever it is, $50 trillion a year, whatever the number is. So they're not going
Hmm.
to do that anymore. So states, you just take over, right? That would just blow everything up. So again, there's got to be a transition. So especially Social Security for seniors, right? They're gonna, that's too late for a 80-year-old to go out and get a job, right? So they're gonna need that assistance that they were counting on in their retirement. So it's got to be a wind down, and it's complicated. There's no perfect way to do it, and I've thought about it quite a bit. And all I know is there has to be a wind down, and there has to be grandfathering people in. But all the people that are sucking off the welfare system and not really trying to get a job, and how easy it is to get around the fake requirements that you can only get it for so long, and then you have to find a job, all that stuff, like just collapse all of that immediately. If you're able-bodied, you go out and get a job and support yourself. Pretty
Hmm.
simple, right?
Yeah, and I'm like there needs to be a transition off government to charity before self, before actually caring for yourself, right? And some people will be on charity. There'll probably always be some people on charity, but like the problem we have now is that like the people who require it don't have anywhere to like in advance organize their charity. Like you couldn't just suddenly end government and then be like, okay, now everyone be charitable. It needs to be like organized in advance. So I'm imagining like a, a database of people who need charity. Sign up to be charitable.
Yeah, and just imagine if they stopped, if everyone realized they didn't have to pay income taxes, there'd be a lot more money floating around that people could be charitable with, right?
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of avenues. And the only point I'm trying to make here is that this, and it's the point of this entire podcast series, is there has to be a transition. You just don't go from here it is now. 50% of all Americans are getting government benefits, and we're saying, all right, next month nobody's getting them. Right? That's
Hmm.
insane. Can't
Yep.
happen that way. So you find a logical path out of it. You change up the rules there, and once you realize that the rules in place are to make people more dependent, right? Then you change the rule book. Say the new rules are we are going to make everybody less dependent, and that's how you
Hmm.
wean yourself off of the communist nonsense. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think something we're putting forward here as well is like let's seed into the public consciousness people independently developing transitional strategies. Like, here's what we could do. Here's what we could do. Just get all these little transitional tactics and strategies in place to actually start this going. Because we just, one of the reasons we're stuck in,
Right.
what we have is we haven't thought about transitional strategies yet at all. We've thought about what we want, but we haven't thought
Right.
of any transitional strategies at all.
That's right. And you feel helpless when you think about it. Like, oh my God, right? $50 trillion in entitlements every year. How could that ever possibly go away? Can't.
Right.
How can you replace that? You can't. All right, we got to stick with the system we got.
Yeah. But if we
Right?
start
It's
thinking about it
learned
for real,
helplessness.
figuring it out, we can actually figure it out for sure.
We can, we will, and we shall. And you're right. We're just seeding people's minds right now. Think about it. There's someone out there has a better idea about this than you and me, right? We're just throwing some ideas out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
We got to do something, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's think it through, right? So here's another big one. I mean, this I think maybe this is accounts for more money than anything else is Medicare and Medicaid, and really you can just toss in our entire fraudulent medical system, well 90% fraudulent medical system, into the trash if everyone just knew that sustained discordant feelings cause disease, right? Like all you got to do is educate people. Here's why you get sick, right? Here's how you can avoid being sick. Then the whole entire Medicare and Medicaid thing, right, loses 99% of its needs.
Oh yeah, it's a totally fictitious thing. Like, all you need is like direct emergency care where you break your arm or like you're having a heart attack. You know, things of that nature. All this
Right.
like, oh, I'm feel pain in my organ this week, and I need
Yeah.
instant care. No.
Unfortunately, right, there are people in their 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s that have come up with the current system that are now dependent on 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 prescription medications, right, that
Mm-hmm.
may need to may need to continue
Mm-hmm.
just because it's so changed the way their bodies operate that they can't, right, you can't just say, all right, hey, you really don't need this, just resolve your conflicts, right? Like it's too late. There's so many things have changed with them that they are going to continue to need their stuff. So again, transitional era. But the people coming up behind them are going to need less and less and less as time goes on,
Mm-hmm.
just with a little bit of education.
Okay. Work requirements with teeth.
It was funny. I thought that was a dental thing when I read it. I forgot it.
That so did I. I was like,
Right.
the first time it came up, I was like, what is this, dental? How are we gonna handle
I
dental?
can't. Right. I kind of covered this earlier, but yeah. Again, instead of giving people every opportunity to be dependent and collect their welfare check every month, you're actually the entire thing is, yeah, no, there's no reason why you can't have a job. Right? 90% of the people on straight up welfare and food stamps can absolutely have jobs,
Mm-hmm.
and wouldn't take a whole lot of effort to ensure that those people did get jobs. And you know what? With a job, they actually feel better about themselves, and when they feel better about themselves, then they get more productive, and on and on and on. Right? So there's a beneficial cascade in telling people get up, contribute to society, do something.
Yeah, and this is actually happened in Australia. Like 20 years ago, you could just get free money, but now you can get free money for a short period of time, and then you have to do work, some sort of like government organized work, if you want to like to create some value, if you want to continue to get
Right.
money.
Well, that's how it's supposed to be here too. But there's a thousand ways around it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. The easiest way around it is, especially people who are raising children. As long as they have children, they just say, I got too many kids, I can't do it. And, da, 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 da. And yeah, there's some
Mm-hmm.
truth to it, but again, somehow or another, they manage to collect, welfare and food stamps for 10, 20, 30 years without any problems. So yeah,
All
that's
right.
the final point here. There is that the community accountability replaces the federal anonymity. I like that. Community accountability
Right.
replaces federal anonymity. That's very simple. That speaks for itself, right? Now, we're all responsible for the people who live around us and our neighbors and making sure that they're cared for and they're contributing members of society, right? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It isn't that complicated, is it?
No, and at first it sounds like, so what is this? Some socialist dictatorship, and you're gonna force me to care for my community? But it's like people actually want to care for their community and the neighborhood. You know,
Right. It lifts
it
everybody
actually
up.
feels good.
Yep, it lifts everybody up. Instead of saying, "Oh, the government's supposed to take care of them," right? When you actually are involved in it, then it lifts you up as well as the other, and it's cascading benefits for everybody.
I'm pretty sure that you get as much benefit in your life from helping someone else as from helping yourself. Like, I'm pretty sure about that. Like, there's some
Uh,
cosmic way the universe works there.
And it's not as much; it's more.
Okay, that sounds even better.
Yeah,
I'll be on the
you
lookout
get
for that.
more benefit. Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right, we're booking along here. Let's see if we can get through section 4 here with parallel systems, right? So again, you don't tear down, you build alongside. Every failed revolution made the same mistake. Destroy first, build after. We're saying the exact opposite, right? The rebel never cooperates, right? The answer is parallel construction. Build the alternative while the old system still stands, which is what's going on right now. Let people migrate voluntarily. Don't force them, right? Once the old doesn't get overthrown, it gets abandoned. Death by irrelevance. Well said. Comments?
Uh, I think that's the one of the main threads through this whole podcast.
Yep. So it's
Totally
already
agree.
happening. Homeschooling, parallel education, Substacks and podcasts is the parallel media, Bitcoin and gold is the parallel money, private arbitration, parallel courts, right? Armed citizenry, parallel security. These aren't theories, they're operating systems running right now, scaling daily, proving the model works. So all we're doing is encouraging people to continue and get involved as much as you can, right? Withdraw your participation in the old fraudulent systems and get involved in these as you can. The state
Okay.
can't stop what it can't see. Right? Centralized power requires centralized targets. Decentralized parallel systems have no headquarters to raid, no leader to arrest, no single point of failure. A million families homeschooling isn't a movement, it's a million independent decisions. You can't prosecute a preference shift. Well said. Yeah?
So this is some. Are you getting? Are you just using homeschooling as a example here, or yeah, yeah? That's the bullet isn't about homeschooling, is it?
That was just for education piece.
Right.
Right?
So yeah, yeah. I think the point you're making is like that many decentralized competing parallel systems, right? Not even competing, just cooperating. Rather than like I guess something I had in my head was like, yeah, we make a decentralized parallel system. But no, everybody can get in on making a new decentralized system for themselves to, serve their neighborhood and community.
Exactly, right? Nancy is a great educator, and she's great with elementary school kids. And all of a sudden, everyone in the community says, "Hey, let's let Nancy educate our kids over at her house." Right? Boom, done.
Yeah,
Right? That's
right.
a parallel system underway. Right? This GNM expert down the street knows all about health. Da, 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 da. I'm going to stop paying into the insurance and the medical thing. Blah, blah. I'm just going to, when I have health things, I'm going to go talk to him. And he tells 10 people, 20 people. Next thing Jim down the street's handling the medical things for 1,000 people. Right? Boom, done. Right? Nobody said, here's the new system that everyone has to follow. Right? That's the idea. Yeah?
Yeah, I just noticed how decentralized, like the first part of that word is dissent, right? And it's like when you
Mm,
dissent against the government, it's kind of like
right?
the same thing. Decent.
Little linguistic marriage there. Sure.
Convenience.
Right. So, right, critical mass triggers the cascade. That's what we've been trying to say all along, right? The parallel systems start niche, they grow quietly, then they hit a tipping point. When enough commerce happens in gold-backed currency, fiat becomes the sideshow. When enough people get news from independents, legacy media loses ad revenue and collapses. Although I don't think ad revenue really matters to them. They've been doing it. They've been losing money for a decade now. When enough disputes go to private arbitration, courts lose jurisdiction through disuse. And by the way, you can make all kinds of agreements with marriages and businesses and all kinds of things. That when you make a contract, you can say if there's any disputes, we go to private arbitration. We haven't really talked about that, but everyone has the power to do that, right? You don't have a contract with the state.
Mm-hmm.
The old system doesn't fail, it empties. Your job, very simple: participate and invite. You don't need to convince the masses. You don't need to use the parallel systems yourself. No, you need to use the parallel systems yourself and invite others. Every transaction in sound money, every child homeschooled, every dispute settled privately, every health issue resolved without pharma. These are votes, not not cast in a ballot box, but with your feet, your wallet, your attention, etc. The aggregate of millions of these micro decisions is the revolution. Dun dun
Yeah.
dun.
Yeah, I'm hearing like just in that last bullet, like something really rang out, which is like the the ending of this like feeling of dependence on the government. not something we haven't mentioned before, but it just really, I really felt it there. Like so much of government power is just created by dependence on their offerings.
right? And they make it to such a degree that there almost doesn't seem like any other choices. That's what they want you to believe, that they're the only choice, right?
Radio. So, um, we're gonna we talked about maybe we'd write a closing summary, but I think we can pretty much just conclude verbally here.
Yeah, because we're leading into the what got this whole thing started in the first place. It was Matt got real excited about one of the ideas I had scribbled down. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, well, I think we even mostly made this podcast like it's ready. We just weren't ready to speak it because we had to do this transitional era first to just make our way to it.
Right.
But what we've organized is something that we call the Charter for Servants of the People, and that is a phrase that we discussed for like an hour just to get that.
Yeah, it took a while to get there.
Yeah, it's like a work order, or it's like a job description for people who want to take on a role where they serve the public, right? And it's like, okay, you want to come and be what used to be called the government? No, you're joining the service sector, the public service sector, and here's kind of like your general work description about what your philosophy should be and how to act in your job. And it's all freedom, liberty oriented. Pretty
Yeah,
tasty.
and if you remember what little thing Matt said a couple minutes ago when he said, "I think serving people is as much a value as serving yourself." And then I added a little tidbit, and I'm like, oh, actually, no, it's more, it's better. So imagine, right, if that was one of the real benefits of being a public servant.
Sounds great.
You'd
I want
actually,
to be a public servant.
right. A lot of people would want to be. That would bring the best and brightest into public service, right? If they actually
Yeah.
knew what was going on, they were actually serving the public in reality. So it would become an admirable, well paid, well respected line of work to be in,
Yeah,
right?
I tell you, that just sounds great. It feels like actually what I want to do in my life, but like maybe that's why I have so much rage sometimes because like the government says that I can't be a public servant because I'm not qualified and I've got a bad philosophy.
Right. You're not serving their agenda, so you don't fit,
Right.
right? When you don't have an agenda, when your only agenda is to help other people, then all of a sudden, public service is a wonderful thing to be in. And of course, a lot of people do believe that's what they're involved in, but they also, most of those people that are involved in public service, realize after a period of time that there's tremendous amounts of corruption involved
Mm.
in what they're doing.
Okie dokie. Well, we'll probably finish it right up. Finish that there. I got some stuff to do. I would only mention that we've mentioned so much that a consciousness breakthrough is involved in all this. It's not just action. Like the consciousness breakthrough precedes the action. And our course, Take Your Power Back, is our prescription for that consciousness breakthrough. So if you go to themindblowenzone.com, click on courses, you will see it there.
That'll
Life
get you
changing
pointed in the
course.
right direction.
Yeah.
Indeed. All right, Matt. Thanks for doing this one. It was a long one, 2 episodes, but we got knocked out. And we certainly appreciate all the listeners who sat through it all. And hopefully, we've seeded your minds with a few thoughts that it's not impossible to get to a more utopian society. And there's a path from here to there, right?
Yep. And thank you, Brad, for putting this all together because a lot of work gone into this, I can tell. So I appreciate it, and I'm sure the listeners do too.
Excellent. And thank you, AI. Thank you, Claude. He summed it all
Claude, you're great, mate.
up. All right. That should do it.
Alrighty. See you, everyone. See you next time.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everybody.
Brad.
Bye bye.